Okay, well, it says I'm live, so we'll see if that's true. Does anybody out there see me? So, Mike Cantrell, Prison Officer Podcast. Um, don't know exactly how this is going to work. I read this idea online, so we're going to try it. We're going to see what happens. I wanted to talk about my new book, Power Skills, and maybe we'll do a few other things and talk and chat, see if people have questions, and I'll probably read a little bit from the book. Um, so that's where I'm at. Um, I wish I could have everybody on here, but the best way to do that with YouTube is to open up the chat, which I believe is open. Is anybody able to chat yet? I saw where my wife, of course, came in earlier. James Robinson. There's Dusty Klinger. How are you, Dusty? I'm glad to see you tonight. Uh, so we are live. That makes me feel better. People are able to see me. So, um, what I wanted to do tonight was talk about power skills. This is my new book, and just got those in. Actually, that's the author's copy. So just got these in. Power skills, emotional intelligence, and soft skills for correctional officers, first responders, and beyond. And there's a reason why I added that too there. Originally, I sat down to write that, and I'll tell the story about how that happened. But originally, I sat down to write that just for correctional officers. And as I finished and got towards the end, I got to taking a look, and it's not just correctional officers who can use that information, who can use um, maybe a little bit of simplifying, maybe some common sense for emotional intelligence. And so that's why I kind of broadened it, because I think dispatchers, police officers, firefighters, anybody that deals with crisis, I think can use this book to better learn how to have a common sense approach to emotional intelligence and to gain some social skills. And together, those become power skills. And so that's where that book's title came from. I'll tell you where I originally started with that. I got to attend a class, I think it was last June, out in Tennessee. And I met a new instructor while I was out there. His name was Miles Cook. And so I was listening to his class. And any of you that have been in corrections know that, every year we have annual training or refresher training, whatever they call it at your agency. And every year they have that. And every year we talk about emotional intelligence. It seems like that's been around as just a flash word for a long time. But in my experience, it's always been taught, and nothing against psychologists or psychiatrists, but it's always been taught by that type of person. And they come at it with a sense of telling me I need to have more empathy. And for a penitentiary officer, and those of you that have worked in prison and worked in penitentiaries know what I'm talking about. Um, for a penitentiary officer, that just doesn't jive right. Empathy isn't something I'm willing to let go of a whole lot of, because it's often manipulated inside prison. So doesn't mean we don't care, but showing empathy gives up a little bit of the armor that we carry when we walk inside. So I've always kind of hung back from those words. Emotional intelligence always scared me a little bit. Um, I just hung back from it. I wasn't comfortable using the term. So anyway, flash forward, I'm sitting in Miles's class, and he's talking about emotional intelligence, and he's talking about it in a whole different way. And when he got done discussing the parts of emotional intelligence and how that relates to corrections and law enforcement, um, he made a statement about emotional intelligence is a superpower. That was how he put it. Emotional intelligence is a superpower for correctional officers and law enforcement. If you have good emotional intelligence, you're way ahead. You're way ahead of everybody. So um, that was kind of where that went, and my brain started churning and started thinking about it. And a little bit after that, I'm developing some classes for command presence, and I called a friend of mine who's a mentor. I used to work for her, and now we're both retired. And I reach out. She's still a mentor to me, but I reach out to her all the time. And Linda Sanders has a way of um, going right to the heart of the problem. And I was hearing stuff. I'm looking for what we need to build for the newest officers coming in. You hear all this generational stuff and what they're not coming in with. And so I called her and I said, if you could just pick it out of the air, what would you say? And I truly was expecting a lot of what I hear, Generation X, recruitment, retention. And she said, I need social skills. I need people with social skills. And I said, what do you mean by social skills? And she said, the ability to walk up to a person and start a conversation. And so I started thinking about that. And that's absolutely what's missing a lot with the newer hires. Their social skills, their ability to have a conversation, their ability to just talk to someone, which is hard. It was hard when I started. When I came on board as a correctional officer, I was a young dumb guy. I came from a country town. Here I am at Missouri State Pen dealing with Crips and Bloods and Muslims and Aryan Brotherhood. Never been around these type of people before, so there was an automatic communication barrier that I had to learn pretty quick. And being able to just talk to anybody, being able to start a conversation, being able to hold a conversation matters a lot in corrections. So when I got done talking to her, had Miles's thing in the back of my head, and that's when that started. That's when I sat down and started thinking about how corrections has always brought forth hard skills, but the soft skills we don't spend enough time on. And then as I was writing the book, I realized something about myself. I'd been using emotional intelligence my entire career, but I either didn't name it or didn't want to name it. Um, but that's what I was doing. I was talking to people. I was understanding their feelings and how that affected the actions that I was seeing. I was building social capital. I was using conversation starters to start conversations with people who I had little in common with. Um, One of the things that, of course, took me the longest and the most important part of emotional intelligence was self awareness. And self awareness is when you start to realize how your emotions affect everybody, whether that's inmates or whether it's staff or whether it's your boss or whoever. When you learn how your emotions are affecting people and how to regulate that, which usually that doesn't come in the first couple of years. That takes a while to develop. That takes a while to build up. So um, that's where I was at, and started writing that book. Made me do some introspection, absolutely, and I learned a lot about emotional intelligence that I didn't know before, and when I got done, looked around, and power skills, that's exactly what they are. They're power skills that you can take to work with you at that moment. I know I had something, and I wanted to read this because, I think it talks directly to what corrections has always done, which is the hard skills. We've never practiced. We always had to learn those from the people who were already there. We didn't get those from the agency, or at least I didn't. I was taught hard skills from an agency. So I'm gonna go here to a book, and I'm gonna talk or read a little section here. And this actually comes from. Let me back up here. There it is. And this actually comes from, if you've ever looked it up, the 1938 book titled Prisons and Beyond. Sanford Bates was the first director of the Bureau of Prisons, and he was a what they called a penologist back then. I don't think that term's used much anymore, but he was an expert in prisons And so he wrote the book called Prisons and Beyond. And he was first director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons. And he discusses the need for specific standardized correctional training at the first school for correctional officers. And that was in the BOP. The general purpose of this school was to qualify officers to think intelligently on practical problems of the prison of today, to give them an adequate comprehension of the history and sociological background of modern correctional service, physical education, instruction in first aid, and mental hygiene and the art of self defense were given in order that the officer might meet all emergencies. And that's still, when you look at academies, that's the bulk of what we teach is the hard skills, the firearms, the defensive tactics, the cuffing things that we still make the most important thing when we have or when we're teaching rookies. But the thing they need the most is to be able to talk to someone, be able to have a conversation, be able to understand what a person's going through, not empathize necessarily. I don't have to understand the feelings they're having. I don't have to become part of their problem. But if I understand the feelings they're having, I have a better chance of understanding the actions that I'm seeing. And a lot of times that'll help me defuse, de-escalate what's going on. Um, so I think that's a perfect lead in there where it talks about the hard skills. That's what he started off the first correctional officer school with. But I will point out one thing, and I don't know if you caught it in there. I love this passage because he talks about teaching the officers mental hygiene. What do you think mental hygiene is? What does that mean? Well, I had to go look it up, and what I discovered it's keeping clean. And when we go into corrections, it makes so much sense to me after I read that. When we go into corrections, our mind is overwhelmed with, um, violence, with cursing, with things that most people would never see in a lifetime, and we might see it dozens of times in a week. So, how do you teach somebody to keep their mind clean when they're going in those environments? These days, we call it wellness. We call it mental wellness. We call it, staff wellness. And but back then they called it mental hygiene. And I'd like to go back to that terminology because that terminology speaks to me more about what it actually is. I don't need wellness. I need mental hygiene. I need to have, whether it's hobbies, whether it's family, whether it's off time, whatever it is, I need to have that thing that allows me to clean the thoughts out of my mind. And I know a lot of you have even heard the term mind scars. You see stuff that doesn't go away, that puts a scar on your brain and it never goes away. Um, the way we get rid of some of that stuff, of course, is get out on the weekend, whatever your weekend is, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever it is. I understand, but get out on your weekend and do something that gives you a little bit of time to cleanse your mind, to wipe it clean, at least a little bit, so that when you walk back in on your Monday, there's room to think again. There's room to um, handle what you're going to see and what you're going to do. So, um, so that's kind of where I was at with that, and that kind of explains where power skills came from and what I wanted to do with it. Um, does anybody have any questions? I see we've got what have we got? 5, 6 people online. Anybody have any questions that you want to know about me or the book? I'm open on this. Well, most of you know me pretty well. I don't have a lot to hide. So, okay. Well, if you don't mind, I'm going to go back to the book. Um, I'll give you a little taste of what's in here, and we can go from there. Correctional officers naturally assume leadership roles over inmates. It's inherent in the position. However, the greater challenge lies in two often overlooked areas: leading oneself and leading your peers. While managing inmate behavior might come naturally with the authority of the badge, the subtle art of self leadership and peer influence requires a deeper understanding of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence encompasses the ability to observe, understand, and manage emotions in both ourselves and in others. I should have thought about quieting that. There we go. Sorry. When an officer develops strong emotional intelligence, their decision making becomes more refined, their problem solving more creative, and their communication skills more effective. This intelligence manifests itself through several interconnected abilities. Officers must first master emotional perception, the ability to recognize emotional states in themselves and others. This perception leads to emotional reasoning and understanding, where officers analyze the underlying causes of emotional response. Finally, emotional management allows officers to regulate their own responses while helping to maintain a stable environment. So, does it matter what kind of mood I bring to work? Um, I can tell you a little story. When I worked at Thompson, Illinois, opening up that prison, it was an extremely stressful time due to the fact that the Bureau was given this mission, which they dumped on uh, the new institution, Thompson, which wasn't new. It was built in 1999. The Bureau got it in 2014, and we were expected to open this up as a maximum security prison without the support that would normally happen for a maximum security prison or the budget. And a lot of stuff needed to be done. So staff were very stressed. I was very stressed. Everybody was very stressed. Um, I see where Dusty wrote, "Yep, calm begets calm," and you're right. That's exactly what I'm talking about, as well as coming in and kicking the trash can, because I would notice um, if I came in kicking the trash can, so to speak, upset, mad, another day at work, and I'm not happy, and the captain comes in acting like that, and you see the lieutenants scatter, and then they go out, and they're out there with the officers now, and they're yelling at the officers because they're in a bad mood, and then the officers are going to yell at the inmates, and as this goes and as it grows, you're going to see where one person can have a bad effect, a trickle effect on the rest of the institution. And at the same time, and here's what I want to remind you of, one person can also have that positive effect. One person can, um, and teach this in class. I teach for command presence quite a bit, and it's something I talk about a lot. Is that if you don't like the culture where you're at, change it, because one person can change the culture. One person changes two, two changes four, four changes eight, and it keeps growing. But the next episode of the Prison Officer Podcast, I've got a letter from a guy who's dealing with a boss, and it's something we're going to, because you can lead from the bottom up. You absolutely can change the culture of a place. Now, sometimes the boss they can they can cause people to be in bad moods, right? But if we take it upon ourselves, if we do that self-regulation, if we remain calm, then everybody else around us will be calm. That also works really, and you guys have probably all seen this, um, use of forces, working at Springfield, where both Dusty and James here worked at. Um, you knew the lieutenants who you wanted to do a use of force with. I can think of one right off the hand, female lieutenant, and I know that when I had to do those use of forces, we knew it was going to last forever, and it was going to um, be more than it needed to be, because she would end up making the inmate madder than he was before we got there with the team. Um, and I know James, I think he was on one of them with me. He knows what I'm talking about. Um, so you can do just the opposite. If you can't control yourself, you can cause a situation that should be controllable easily. uh, you can take that out of control, and you can involve 10 times more people and 10 times more resources um, than needed. And we've all seen that happen. And so you would see people who wanted to work with certain lieutenants, certain supervisors, because they knew that those lieutenants would keep things grounded, would keep things pointed in the right direction. So, um, so here's something else I was thinking about doing. Let's see if this works. Pretty good odds right now. So, one of the other books that I have written is Finding Your Purpose, Crafting a Personal Vision Statement to Guide Your Life and Career. Um, this came out of a part of my life where I decided I needed to make a change. It's something I still take to college classes and talk to students about because having a personal vision statement gives you focus in life. So um, it's something that is close to my heart. So I'm going to do this and I'm going to write down a number. So I've written down a number in here. And if you will text a number between 1 and 10 up here, I will see who gets the closest or gets on this number. So if you're on here, text a number between 1 and 10. I tried to think of a good way to do a giveaway, and this is the only way I can think of. So between 1 and 10, Dusty Klingler is 7. He guessed 7. Who else do I have? Somebody else guess a number. You got a 1 in 2 chance, it looks like right now. There's 5 people up there on the board. So if everybody guesses a number, you got a 1 in 2 chance of getting it right. Give me another number. Throw me a number, James. James is at 3. Anybody else? And I'll do it a couple more books. I got a couple more books coming, but anybody else want to guess a number? Okay. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Okay. So, number 6. So it looks like Dusty is the closest. Dusty, if you will email me your address, I will put this book in the mail for you. And I hope you enjoy it. It's built like a workbook so that you can start from the beginning and build your own personal vision statement. And so, anybody have any questions? Another thing I wanted to mention, because I'm pretty, yeah, you may just come and get it. I'm good with that too, Dusty. This morning I checked the what do you call it, the stats or whatever on the books. They went live last night at midnight, so they went live, and with the pre-orders and stuff, Power Skills, the Kindle edition is actually number 25 um, right now. Let's make sure. Oops, I gotta move that. You gotta love live, right? So, number 25 in career advancement and professional development books. So I think that's pretty darn cool. Um, we'll see as the sales keep going if that goes up, but I think that's pretty good to be in the top 25. If you've ever been through, um, that's funny. James said Dusty was hoping for the coloring book version. Well, you can color in this. There's all. I'll see if I can come up with a couple of colored pencils to go with it. So there are pictures. I made it for myself, so there's pictures in it. So let's talk about Um, so you guys tell me, what is the hardest thing? What's the biggest communication barrier with the new generation? What do you think? A little reference there to um, um, oh, I just forgot the name of the movie. What's the movie with Catrice, Clarice? That's what it is. Silence of the Lambs. That's it. I ate the crayons with fava beans and a nice Chianti. They don't speak the same language. Hmm. Well, texting, I read an article the other day. Kathy showed me an article where they're actually calling what's going on with texting and the way everything's shortened. LOL, ROFL. U is just the letter. It's not even, they got rid of the Y and the O. It's just U now. But they're starting to call this a new language. Um, I don't know. I don't know if I think it's a new language. I think for a long time, I've grown up in a agency that has absolutely more acronyms than you can shake a stick at, let alone the slang that we use that nobody else understands but us. So, um, yeah, that's. I don't know if what I think about that or not, whether or not it is actually a new language, but they are hard to understand. And I'm gonna touch on another section from the book, and cell phones. And I'm talking about teamwork. Cell phones, the ever-present companions in our pockets, are both a blessing and a curse. They connect us across continents, yet they can also isolate us within our digital bubbles. And that's what I see a lot of. The art of striking up a spontaneous conversation has been replaced by emoji-laden texts, emails, and Zoom calls. The addiction to constant pings and notification distracts us from our jobs, even when the phone is locked in our car in the parking lot. How many staff have you seen that get the chance to go out or go to lunch or even a transport trip? What's the first thing they do? They run to the car and they go get their phone and they check see if anybody has texted them. Um, and then along social distancing, a necessary precaution during uncertain times, transformed our workplaces. The very real threat of COVID caused staff to become less hands on in their interactions with inmates. Staff became less likely to conduct cell searches and pat searches than in the past. And although correctional staff have always faced the possibility of coming in contact with hepatitis B, AIDS, TB, or a plethora of other communicable diseases, this was the first time that anyone was given permission to avoid human contact. And so we did, and for an extended amount of time. The result was the normalization of no human contact, an outcome that has severe repercussions for the safety of our profession. And I absolutely throw that out there. A bunch of us worked at the medical center. We had active TB cases. I know what it's like to be around inmates that you could catch something from. Dozens, if not 100, AIDS, inmates with AIDS, HIV, um, hepatitis B. We've all been vaccinated for it. So working at a medical center, I was always exposed to what could potentially be something horrible to take home to my family or live with. And then COVID came along. And for some reason, COVID was different. At that point, the government, um, our healthcare people in charge, gave everybody permission to socially distance, to stand 6 foot away, even in the grocery store. So when that went into the prisons, now we've got officers standing 6 foot away. We've got officers that don't want to put hands on. We've got officers that don't want to um, get in an inmate's cell and dig through stuff in order to find contraband. And I'll even throw out that that's okay. It was okay for a little bit. I don't think it was the right call. Hindsight's always 2020. Don't think it was the right call, but look at what we've done now. Now we've got an entire generation of people who are they're scared to touch. They're scared to get close to people. They're even scared to have a conversation with people that they don't control through emojis or through texts or from a distance so that they can, I guess, push the button and turn you off if they don't like what you say. Um, so that's where we're at these days. We have this huge gap, this huge conversation gap, a social distancing gap that we don't seem to be able to get back. I do know that I get to go through lots of jails and prisons with my work still. And I see so many staff that are escorting inmates and they're not watching them. They don't have hands on them. Um, that's going to get people hurt. If you can't put hands on someone, you can't control them. And the mental freedom, and some people are going to take this the wrong way, but inmates can't have complete mental freedom from your control when you're a correctional officer. If you do, then you lose that control. They need to know that we're watching, that we're doing um, our job, that we're worried about security. And being hands on is one way that we reach up and just put a hand on them. I'm not talking about a use of force. I'm talking about, hey, step over here for a second. I'm going to pat you down. That little bit of hands on is enough to remind them that we are controlling the situation. Well, we don't do that anymore. I'm looking here and oh, I didn't know that. So we've contracted with Microsoft, and the Zoomers and Millennials have a messenger um, type of thing. Wow. Microsoft Teams. Well, that is probably stopping a lot of work from getting done. Wow. I don't know that a messaging app is a great idea um, on the computer. Now, I did write an article for Corrections One not too long ago about whether or not cell phones have their time inside now. We've given all the inmates tablets. Why can staff not have a cell phone? And my argument isn't strictly on giving everybody a cell phone, because I understand there are people who are going to misuse it. But what I see is a lot of administrators that say it's a security issue that staff don't have a cell phone. And they say that while all of the administrators are carrying their cell phone. Because if you'll watch these days, you'll see a lot of time spent by those same administrators clicking, linking, checking their texts on a cell phone. I even had a warden who who sometimes didn't barely talk to me. He would send a picture from his cell phone to my cell phone of what was wrong. Hey, I saw this wrong. Here, go get this fixed. Where's the communication there? We're losing communication. Wow. Yeah. Says that Microsoft Teams has some great benefits, good or bad. It's here to stay. Yeah. I don't know about giving them the messaging. Um, if it was on a cell phone where they could be mobile, but if you're messaging from a computer, where are they at? And if they're only messaging from a computer, what are they missing? That would be my questions. Um, so I don't know. It's good. That's a good discussion there. So I got another part of the book I want to talk about. Um, within the first, let's see, there's one page, two, three, four, five. So on the fifth page of Power Skills, I've got a dedication in there. And I not only want to mention it, I want to point it out because I'd like everybody to read it when they buy the book. Um, but I do want to explain it just a little bit. The dedication are to a few very important things in my life, and one of them's sitting over here, and it doesn't look like I have that problem tonight, but she is running the moderation desk, making sure that I don't have anybody come on here going crazy. You never know these days in the chat. But I just wanted to say, and I said in the book to my wife, Catherine, your support and sacrifice did not go unnoticed. I wanted her to know that I did notice what she's done. I noticed um, how much time and effort she put into doing, keeping our family going when I wasn't there. I worked a lot of overtime. That's how we made extra money, um, was by me staying at work. So she didn't have a lot of support at home a lot of the time, but she did a great job keeping our kids going, keeping our family going. And I just wanted her to know that that did not go unnoticed. Did you hear me over there? Love you. So, um, the second part of that dedication says to the forgotten heroes whose shift was cut short by criminals who were allowed one more victim by our justice system. And some people may not quite understand what I'm talking about, but our justice system, and I've watched it for more than 30 years now. We continue to let inmates, violent inmates, kill, murder, um, attack, scar the people around them. For some reason, we have a justice system that worries more about the inmates than it does the victims. And some of those victims over the years, and this is, last week was Correctional Officers Week, and most of you had a memorial where you work at an agency. And, we read off those names in the Bureau of Prisons. We read off the names. We ring a bell for each one of them. We have a moment of silence. The chaplain usually says a prayer. But many of those people, there was no need for them to be killed. The people they were killed by had already killed one or more other people, yet they were allowed to go where the public says they're safe. Let's send them someplace safe. Let's send them behind a fence. Let's send them behind a wall, and then we'll have people go watch them. Well, it's not safe for those people that go and watch them, and that's us. And so that dedication is for the people that have lost their lives doing a job that's rarely appreciated very much by the public, it seems like. And I just wanted to put in there that I do appreciate it. They are the forgotten heroes. They did a job that nobody else um, could do or wanted to do, and they gave their life doing it. And the third part is kind of tied in, but this is something that's affected me throughout my career. And it's to the officers who succumbed to the darkness of prison work and could no longer see the light in life. I've thought a couple of times, and I don't know how many staff I knew that have committed suicide. It's not a number where I can say one or two. Um, I know it's easily a dozen over a 35-year career of people who I knew that committed suicide, officers, nurses, staff. Um, and it's just too bad that this job can do that because we have a higher suicide rate than most any other job. So I don't know how we fix that. Some of it's that mental hygiene that we talked about. How do we allow people to gain some mental hygiene, to be able to not let the work dig into their brain so deep that they can't see light anymore, that they can't see a reason to be alive anymore, um, because it's so sad, and it's been said many times. It affects everybody. when that happens. Affects everybody in the institution. Everybody's already carrying a load, and then when that happens, they get that extra load put on them of why? Why didn't they come talk to me? Why didn't they take a moment? So anyway, I just wanted to talk about the dedication in there because those three things mean a lot to me, and that's why they're in the front of the book. So when you do buy the book, um, I hope that you'll take the time to read that dedication page. Um, and speaking of buying the book, it's on Amazon. It's $12.99 for the print version. It is $2.99 for the Kindle version, and if you are on Kindle Unlimited, it is $0, um, which is a monthly subscription through Amazon. But the book Power Skills is on Kindle Unlimited, so if you've already got that, you can read it for free, or eh, not free, but for your monthly subscription. Let's see. I don't think Kathy's going to ban you guys. Um, Monetize so we can super chat, Mike. Do you have 1,000 subscribers yet? I do not have 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, which I just started YouTube. I don't know how many months ago, a few months, end of last year, and I think I'm up around 250 actual subscribers. So, if you haven't subscribed, I would love for you to click the subscribe button. Um, I would love to try super chat. Have not done that. I was looking at whether or not we could do this through chat. I looked at doing it through Riverside and then posting it to YouTube. And that way I could have had some people on here live besides myself. And Buzz Dusty's asking if I buy the Kindle version, can I convert it to an audiobook for my own use? You absolutely can for your own use. I am looking into what it to doing the audio version. That's something I have not done yet, but it is something I want to do, and so I hope to see that out by the end of the year as an audiobook. I've got several other things I'm working on, so I've kind of put it to the side for a minute. But you do have permission to do that. I know that you're going to run it through some type of AI deal. So, anyway, let's see. What else was I going to talk about? Well, now that I have finished, um, now that I've finished Power Skills, and I'm just reading Dusty there again. Um, you wrote one, I'm sure you did. Yep. He is a programmer extraordinaire, has been for years. When we all worked together, Dusty made our life easier many, many times with the programs he wrote that allowed us to do things in the office, in the housing units, that allowed us to keep track of inmates, allowed us to do our jobs better. And almost every single time, he can tell me if I'm wrong, but almost every single time the Bureau got involved and ruined it. Um, they, I guess they didn't like us being that productive. But anyway, he is a programmer extraordinaire. So we're about 44 minutes into this, and I do appreciate you guys stopping by. I am writing another book. It is called The Weight of Justice. It's going to be different. It's not going to be. I look at Power Skills as more of as a training book. That's what I put it together for. Um, and so that's the next book that's coming out. It's going to be part memoir. It's going to be about what I saw and then what I learned. Um, 35 years, and I didn't spend my time just at camps. When I say I worked 35 years, I started off at Missouri State Pen, which was the bloodiest 47 acres in America back then. Um, I worked at Leavenworth, which was a tough institution. Still got a lot of friends up there. I worked at Springfield, and Springfield's one of those little known places that um, we did a use of force, I think, almost every day. Some days we did two or three or four. Now, it wasn't riots and it wasn't, big gang fights, but having inmates who were self-harming or um, all the things that you have to do with mental health inmates and even medical inmates are a pain a lot of the time. So went from there, went to Thompson, which was the newest USP. So I spent my time um, working in some tough places. With that said, I saw a lot of things. So the first part of Weight of Justice, which the reason I'm naming it that, or that's the name I'm going with right now, is because I feel like corrections carries the weight of justice. Um, you know, uh, the law enforcement officers, the cops get to go out and arrest them. Then they hand them over to the judges who sentence them, and then they give them to us, and everybody forgets about them. And then we have to carry that weight. And we don't carry that weight for a day or a week or a month or a year. Some of those things we carry for 20, 30, 40, 50, or a life sentence. So we carry that weight a long time. And that's why I called it the weight of justice. But um, I thought I'd talk about, or maybe read the first little part of this, and we'll see how that goes. But this chapter is called "Prison Will Change You." Segregation always had a certain smell, a mix of urine, sweat, and breath. And I might warn you, this one's not quite as nice as the other one. A mix of urine, sweat, and breath. It is the smell you would expect when 60 men are put in a concrete box in a basement with only the occasional draft from a low window to circulate air. Every day in the prison bakery, the cooks and convicts begin making bread at 3 o'clock in the morning. The dough is worked in industrial sized mixers as big as small bathtubs. The dough is then put into oversized bread pans that are loaded into room sized ovens. I'm lucky this day as I stop by the kitchen to grab a chunk of bread. Fresh from the oven, I spoon a glob of prison butter over the hot, crusty surface, and voila, breakfast. The aroma is heaven. That was an hour ago. This is ADSEG, the segregation unit, or as some call it, the hole. The stench is always worse at chow time. When we serve the inmates their trays, if I try, I can almost remember the smell of fresh baked bread. But in reality, the segregation smell couldn't be overcome. The yeasty smell of bread mixes in the warm air with the urine, the sweat, and the breath of 60 men. This combination of smells almost makes me gag. I choke it back. It's time to feed, and in the segregation unit, this brings most inmates up to their bars. Anytime they get to interact with a person other than their cellmate, it is welcomed. Chow time is one of those times. Despite what the movies portray, prison food isn't slopped on trays in big, gross globs. The correctional officer or CO doesn't splatter it with a big spoon and yell, "Move on." The trays are lined up and filled in a more of an assembly line. Each tray has different size compartments that corresponds to a certain size ladle or spoon. Laws and policy require that inmates get fed a certain amount each meal. To prevent any problems, officers are usually in charge of laying the meat portion and the dessert portion on the trays, but inmate orderlies may also be used to fill the vegetable, the bread, or the salad. Many inmates have different diets, from vegetarian, no meat, to Muslim, no pork, to Jewish inmates that require kosher food. Each tray is filled accordingly with peanut butter, extra bread, or extra beans to replace the meat or the pork. Kosher inmates get specially prepared meals that are packaged to prevent anything non kosher from touching their trays. These filled trays are then placed on carts, and the CO rolls the cart cell to cell and hands it to the appropriate inmate. The minute I start passing trays, this complaining starts. My piece of chicken's smaller than his. I told the chaplain I'm a no pork. I want peanut butter. The complaining is just part of my everyday job. The smell is just part of my job. Michael Knight is a mouthy 140-pound prick on his best day, and today isn't his best day. He routinely is a problem for every shift. Hiding behind the bars of his cell, he would reach out with his practiced insults and piss off just about anyone. He claims to be a Muslim, unless not being a Muslim would get him better food. Today is meatloaf day, but on one of the vegetarian trays he sees peanut butter. I'm not eating that. That has pork in it, he says, pointing at the meatloaf on his tray. As I'm pushing it towards him, through the tray slot, I explain to him that the kitchen doesn't make meatloaf with pork. He's been doing time for a while, and he already knows that. Get me some peanut butter, he yells. I still have my hand on the tray, and I say, do you want your tray or not? Fuck you, he yells. As I begin to move the tray from the tray slot in the open bars, he quickly moves to the bars, and before I can react, spits a big wet loogie on the side of my face. I step back as my anger flushes my face red. My instinct outside of prison would be to charge forward and pummel him until he bleeds for that insult. But this is prison. He is behind bars, and there are cameras on that block that record everything I do. With a mixture of spit and snot still dripping off my face, I grab the tray cart and return to the tray preparation area. I go to the bathroom and scrub his disgusting spittle from my face and begin making new trays. I know the inmates that have not been fed yet will not take trays that Knight has spit across, and I don't expect them to. I try my best not to show any emotion, especially anger, as I walk back past the cells with new trays. I always keep my word to the inmates in my charge, and I do my best to give them what they have coming. Even though I'm not one to break the rules, most inmates still respect me for how I treat them daily. So as I pass out the new trays, several of the inmates say to me that Michael Knight shouldn't have spit on me. A couple of inmates even suggest that I pop his cell door and go in and get some revenge. I'll have to admit, a good old country ass whooping sounds great, but I need my job. My retribution will have to be more covert. I finish up and walk back towards the office. I need a cup of coffee to calm down. And as I walk by his cell, Knight is grinning at me from the back of his cell. I smile back. This isn't done. So there's a taste of my upcoming book. I hope to have that finished. I was going to have it finished instead of Power Skills, but I kind of got interrupted by putting out the new book. So, what'd you think of that? Let's see. Oh, I got one more. Let's do. What'd you guys think of that story? You'll have to buy the book when I get it done to finish out the rest of it. Hey, Kathy, come here. Write down a number between 1 and 10. That way it'll make it fair. Good. Okay. I have another number between 1 and 10. So go ahead and guess a number. I'm not going to let Dusty win twice, probably. Guess a number, James. I hope I'm watching you guys here. And I agree with you. I think the public will be shocked. And I don't hold back in this one. I do hold back. I really do. And you guys know that. Because we can't actually put down on paper what we saw and what we heard. Nobody would believe it, number one. And number two, I don't know that people want to read anything at that level. So I did hold back some, but I wanted the reaction. I wanted people to see a little bit of what we've walked through and what we do. And yeah, I appreciate you guys. I see Dusty said it was real. I liked it. The public would probably be shocked. And James said, I think it was marvelous. It's happened to us all. And it has. It absolutely has. Let's see. Anybody else going to guess? There's more people than these two on there. So somebody else guess a number. I'm going to give you a chance. And I'm happy with you guys getting the books. I absolutely am. I'm probably giving you one anyway. One more chance. Throw a number out there, whoever the other person is. James, I hate to tell you this. I think Dusty. Oh, I will get those in the mail or drop them off with you, Dusty, next time we see each other. I appreciate you guys doing that with me and uh, letting me have a little game here on the book launch. Anyway, so any questions? Who's the other one that's on there? I'd like to know. You're being awful quiet. Well, I to tell you the truth there, I've already sent James one because if I can read it in this light, there it is. Um, James was one of my first beta readers, so he got an early one, and and then I shared a copy with him. So, James, your copy is in the mail. I signed, put a little note in there for you. I do appreciate you taking the time and giving me the feedback. I did send it out to a few people, and they read it for me and sent me some feedback, told me how I could fix it and help it and grow it. And so, hey Dave, how are you? You're not late. Um, we've been reading some stuff from the book, and we've been doing read a little bit of stuff from what's going to be the next book. For those of you that don't know David Schilling, he, if you'll look up Rune Research, he is a expert in runes and how that works into mainly a lot of the uh, Aryan Brotherhood, the white pride type gangs, and how they use the Viking uh, runes in their. And you guys have all seen it. I mean, we've had that stuff in the prisons on their letters, and we see where they use it as codes. And David's an expert in that. We just both of us were at the Midwest Gang Investigators Association and spoke up there, and that was the first time we got to actually shake hands with each other. He's been on the podcast a couple of times, so I sure appreciate you stopping by, Dave, and I'm glad that you're here. Um, did you have a quiet night at work? Did I use the Q word? Holy mackerel! Boy, I have been out of prison a while. I threw the Q word right out there. At least you were already home. Uh, at least you were already home when I said that. So, um, Dave was another one who was a beta reader and got to take a look at the book and tell me what he thought about it. And I used the quote in the front. So I hope I didn't jinx tomorrow. I really don't want to. Uh, but um, anyway, so Dave was one of the beta readers, and it was so much appreciated. Yeah, you're retired too, James. Yep. So yeah, I think. Well, I don't think I know. So now that this book is out, one of the things that I've already put together is um, I've got a class put together that goes with this book, and so I'm going to take it out and hopefully be able to take this training out to people that need it. Um, I'm also hoping that a lot of people will use this for their agency because I think this book would be a good academy book. And if you do know somebody that wants to use it for their agency, have them call me directly and we can do some agency pricing on that. They don't have to buy it off Amazon at that rate. But uh, I think it would be a good book. I'd like to see it out there. I think we got a copy of Games Inmates Play when I came through the academy, and that was the book they gave us, which was a very valid book. It had a lot of good stuff in it. Um, and taught about manipulation. But I think the power skills, the emotional intelligence, the social skills is something that this generation, the newer academies really need. So we'll see how that goes. Uh, I don't know. We'll see. So parenting your teen with love and logic works well too. Was that work well for inmates also? And I see where David said it's a much needed book. Emotional intelligence can make or break an officer. And I absolutely agree with that. Um, if you don't have emotional intelligence, you're going to work twice as hard at work. So give me a instance where something from that book, parenting your teen with love and logic, um, works on an inmate too. I mean, I can see that in coworkers. Emotional intelligence works on coworkers too. Love and logic. I mean, is love and logic are they kind of using different terms for emotional intelligence?